What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com. Got another AMA Ask Me Anything episode for you. This one is brought to us by Michael, and it's all about how to bust through a training plateau. But before we dive into that, let's roll the intro. All right, so Michael asks, the goal is building muscle and getting stronger. What should you do to get over a lifting plateau? Eat more recovery, change the workouts and or rep schemes, or all of the above? Thanks a lot. All right, great question, Michael. And honestly, it's more so a matter of all the above. But you got to be strategic in how you do that. So you don't want to change all those things at once, because then you can't really know what lever was pulled that actually elicited the response that you were looking for. So we'll just go by this, one step at a time. First of all, in order to build muscle and get stronger, you got to pretty much check 4 boxes. You got to be making sure you're eating ample fuel and calories, so being at a caloric surplus ideally. So your body has enough tissue coming in, or enough fuel coming in, enough building blocks necessary to add more tissue. That's number 1. Number 2 is you have to have enough protein, enough amino acids to build more lean tissue. Number 3 is enough of a training stimulus to elicit growth in the first place, to give your body a reason to adapt to that stimuli and create growth. And number 4 is ample recovery so you can build that tissue. So those are the 4 boxes you got to check in order to build muscle to begin with. So kind of breaking your question down, in order to get over a plateau, eating more. If you're not at a surplus, put yourself at a surplus. You don't have to be at an exhaustive surplus, but keep in mind, if you are at a surplus and you're building muscle and then you start to plateau, you may have increased your lean mass enough so that the surplus that you were at previously may now be your new maintenance, in which case you need to increase the food more and put yourself at that surplus. Realistically, if you are seeing progress with your strength metrics and you are seeing an increase in lean tissue via DEXA scan or InBody or something like that, or pictures, and you know confidently you're adding more lean tissue, and then you start to plateau, it may very well be because you've reached your maintenance intake and you now need to go beyond that and eat more food. If you are, in a perfect world, adding more weight to your frame, more strength to your lifts, and are adding more muscle tissue, your calories need to also go up to kind of stay above that maintenance mark, continuously going forward. Recovery. So you asked about recovery. If you are training, high intensity, and you are trying to create enough stimulus to elicit growth, as you should be, you're going to need to allow your body time to recover from that increased intensity. What I like to do is put in a structured deload week every 8 weeks or so. That's basically a period of time in which you give your CNS, your central nervous system, a break from that strenuous activity. And you want to still lift during that deload week, but you can simply drop the weight in half and focus more so on blood flow and volume, as opposed to lifting hard and heavy and taxing your CNS. And then oftentimes you'll come out of that deload week hitting new PRs and kind of busting through that plateau. So you could certainly try something of that nature, or change the workouts and or rep scheme like you mentioned here. A lot of people make the mistake of changing their training style too frequently, jumping from one split to the next, just far, far too often. I've been doing a full body routine for the past 2 years, and yes, I'll change the order of the workouts and the reps and set schemes slightly, but I've been doing the full body split for the past 2 years because my body has not plateaued in that entire 2-year span. Like, I've continued to see progress because my body's been responsive to it. So the notion that you need to change your workout plan every 4 weeks to trick your body is pretty misfounded, so I wouldn't recommend that. And you can change so many different things to increase forms of progressive overload. So you can change the number of reps you're doing. You can change the time under tension. So one thing that I've done recently over the past month or so is I've actually dropped the weight a little bit because I've been going much, much slower with my repetitions. So the muscles are in a stretched position for a greater period of time. They're contracted for a greater period of time. More time under tension. That tempo training can have a pretty profound impact as well and mix things up independent of the exercises you're doing. So that can be a way to bust through a plateau. You can also increase different intensity factors, such as doing drop sets or supersets or circuits. or forced reps or pause reps, or all those different things can be a great way to bust through a plateau and create, enough stimulus for your body to seek change and adaptation in the form of increased lean tissue gain. So feel free to try all those different metrics out, but again, don't do them all at once. Maybe 1 week, try and just simply do the same movements you are, but with a greater increased time under tension. Do that for a week or two, see how your body responds, see if you're able to bust through a plateau. It's interesting because as I've dropped the weight, because I can't hit the same number of reps at the same weight if I'm having an increased time under tension, so I've actually dropped the weight here lately, but then when I go for a PR for like a single rep set, I'll actually see that PR has increased even though my working sets have decreased in total weight and volume. So don't become a slave to thinking that progressive overload is simply defined as more weight on the bar and more repetitions overall. There's a lot of other ways to elicit growth and provide some form of progressive overload. So feel free to mix that up and see what your body responds to. But I would probably start with, taking account of your total caloric intake, figuring out how much food you're consuming, and just ensuring that you're at a surplus. You don't have to be at a massive surplus that's just going to lead itself to increased adipose tissue. You can be at a slight surplus, but if you have been at the same intake for quite some time, it sounds very reasonable to think that you would have built more lean tissue, and what was previously your surplus is now just a maintenance intake, in which case you'll need to bump that up further. So that'd be my recommendations there, Michael. Appreciate the question. You requested some, let's see here, milk and cookies bricks. So I've got some bricks headed your way. Appreciate the question again. For any of y'all that do not know how these AMA videos work, if you submit me a well thought out question via the link in the description below and I use your question on an AMA video, I will send you some free keto bricks with a flavor of your choosing. Thank you for tuning in. Talk to you next time.